everyone, welcome back to Creatively Crafted Life. This is Melanie, and today I am going to be showing you how to make a scene using embossing powder. Now when I say making a scene, I'm meaning this in an artistic kind of abstract kind of way. And so what I am using here are some stamps from Stampendous, and to be honest, I did not come up with this technique. This was something that I saw the owner of Stampendous do at a craft event I was at, and I thought it was super cool and thought I would share my interpretation or my take on it. So ironically, I'm using these polar bears and creating a winterish scene, and at the time of doing this narration, it is 44 degrees Celsius or 112 degrees Fahrenheit where I live. And let's just say winter is the furthest thing from my mind. But anyway, so I am using these polar bears, which are super cute. There is a larger image as well as a smaller one, and I think this set's really quite versatile. You could either use it to make a birthday card, which is what I'm going to be doing now. You could use it to make Christmas cards, and I think it would also be quite appropriate to use for like a baby card or an adoption card, anything like that where you've got some sort of parent-child kind of situation. So you could possibly use it for Father's Day or Mother's Day. So I think this is super cute, and who doesn't love polar bears, right? And the other thing about polar bears is that they are very easy to color because you're stamping on white cardstock, and so all you need to do is add a little bit of shading to give it a little bit of depth. And these stamps from Stampendous are really great about telling you basically where to put the shading. So they already include indicators in the line art that tells you, where some sort of shading should be. So that's all I am doing here. I'm not doing anything super fancy. I am using 3 shades of gray. The gray that I'm using are the warm grays from Copic, and I'm going to use the colorless blender to help soften some of the lines a little bit, and also to clean up any little mistakes that I made. I thought it would be kind of cute to color their scarves with a striped pattern, and I thought I could use some purples and turquoise colors. And again, nothing super fancy here. I am not a Copic expert by any stretch of the imagination. So I think the great thing about Copics is even if you don't know what you're doing, because they color so well, they're just going to look amazing no matter what. So I do try and do a little bit of shading. So I do, like in this case, the scarf, I'm just putting a little bit of the darker shading right along the tips or the edges of the scarf, and then I'm going to blend that with a lighter shade. And because these are fairly small areas, I'm sticking to just the two shades. I don't think it's necessary to go with 3, although that's quite a common practice. I believe with the turquoise, I did go with 3 just because I felt like it, and really that's all there is to it. So if you are looking for someone that is a really great Copic artist and can give you a lot of tips and techniques, I really highly recommend Sandy Alnack. She actually offers classes on this, and just her cards in general are quite inspiring. So if you want to, like I said, if you want to learn more about alcohol ink coloring, in particular Copics, she's someone that's really a great person or a great resource to check out. As for me, I just kind of play with it until I like it, and I'm, go from there. So there are my 2 little bears. Now, this stamp set came with coordinating dies, and these dies are a little bit unique in that they don't leave much of an outline, so they cut really close to the line art, which I really quite like for building scenes. Sometimes I find that white border is a little distracting. It takes away from the realness of the image, right? So you wouldn't, like if you were to do an art piece, if you were to paint a picture, you wouldn't leave a white halo around all your central images. I'm also cutting out this happy birthday die. Now you'll notice that I put in my precision plate just to help get crisp cut from that, and make sure basically that it cuts smoothly so I can pull it out quite easily. And I did not add any adhesive behind, because what I'm doing here, and this is the technique, is I'm taking some Be Creative tape or Sukwang tape, and this is I think about 2 inches, maybe 2.5, and I'm using that to adhere my images down, including my sentiment. So no need to mess around with glue or adhesive on this fine die cut, which is really great in my books because, you know, they are pretty delicate and it can be a little bit tricky. So all I'm doing here is just positioning where I want the sentiment to lie and getting that down in place, and we'll add the a little bear here. You saw me use the release paper just to make sure I got some good adhesion, and you do want to make sure that these are pressed quite firmly down into the double-sided tape, because the next step we are going to do is apply embossing powder, and we don't want any embossing powder to get behind the image, because of course then it would no longer stick close to the card. Now I'm using 3 different shades of embossing powder. These are all from Stampendous as well. Offhand, I don't recall the name of the embossing powders. I'll see if I can find them and leave them in the description below. It was a kit that I bought at my local scrapbook store, so it might have been part of a collection that was exclusive. I'm not sure. But really, all I'm doing is this dark blue with a little bit of a little bit of glitter in it, this turquoise, and then this white that has little gold flecks in it. So the idea behind this is the dark blue with the glitter represents the sky with the stars, and then the turquoise represents the landscape out in the distance, and then of course this white that I'm going to add that has the gold flakes in it is the foreground snow, right? So it gives you that look of a landscape, but it's very artistic and very abstract, and I think that's quite fun. So I am using my finger just to make sure that that is pressed in quite well into the adhesive, and I'm trying to fill in any blanks here, any spots that are open that don't have any embossing powders on them, and I'm just cleaning up the edge a little bit. So now that I've got that all affixed, I'm going to take my heat tool and I'm going to warm it up for a little bit. And then you'll notice that I'm going from underneath the card base, and that's because there's quite a bit of embossing powder on here. And while I think it has pretty good adhesion with the tape, I think because some of the embossing powder is a little chunkier, it helps stick it a little bit more, right? So that when I turn it around and do the front, I don't get a lot of little bits that are scattered. So I'm just inspecting it now and making sure everything looks really good, and I'm happy with it. And I thought, of course, it needed a little bit more sparkle. So this is a sparkle pen, and I'm just going over the words to jazz that up. And then I thought I would extend the landscape into the borders on the card. You do not have to do this, and in some ways I think I actually preferred it before I did this, but it's, you know, something to keep in mind. So the top I'm dotting with a white gel pen, and then with the glitter to, you know, represent the sky and stars, and then the bottom I just added some snow at the bottom, just again to represent, you know, the foreground. And that is pretty much the card. And I'll leave you with some close-ups. Let me know below if you've ever tried something like this, using embossing powders to create a landscape. I think it's a lot of fun and has a lot of potential. Anyways, until next time, happy crafting.